So, second part of Maimonides. So we saw in the first part the importance of having a well put together reason, right? Because this is our ticket out of suffering, right? That's the main point that I want you to remember from part one, right? In other words, our reason is the channel, is the vessel which can receive the divine light, the divine wisdom, so we can begin to climb out of our difficult situations, right? Or of our suffering. Now, like I said before, right? It's not enough to have reason. One's reason has to be two things for this to work. Broad enough, number one, pure enough, number two, right? In other words, the mind has to be prepared. If we are going to receive as much divine providence or divine wisdom or divine light as possible, we need to prepare the mind. The broader the mind, the more light. The purer the mind also, right? So this last section of Maimonides is going to be the steps of purification of the mind. If you do this, now this is what's interesting. This is very interesting. And Maimonides, I don't think even realizes the scope of what is happening here, right? If you purify your mind, doesn't even matter for Maimonides whether you believe in God or not. If your mind is pure, boom, the divine providence and light will flow into you. It's automatic. The divine light is not going to ask you for a passport, like which religion are you? Were you baptized? Did you have your first communion? Did you have a bar mitzvah? No, right? If your mind is clear and broad, the light will flow in. Divine light is like water, right? Wherever there is a place to go, it goes, right? So this is a powerful idea because it seems that according to Maimonides, even if you're atheist, right, you can receive this inpouring of light to the degree that your mind is broad and pure, right? And so even if you're a believer, and the opposite is also true, you can love God like crazy. If your mind is not good, you're not going to get any connection. You're not going to get a true communion with God, right? So this is the real exciting news, is that number one, you don't have to be a believer to receive this download. This intelligence will pour itself into your mind if your mind is ready. But the opposite is also true, and this is the bad news. Even if you love God, your mind is not good, you're only going to get a trickle of the divine communion you might have, right? So this is interesting. So all of us, in a way, can receive this, right? To the extent that we purify our mind. So let's look at the 4 steps of purification. I'm on page 56 or 57. Let me see. 57. I'm on page 57, second paragraph. Okay. So he's talking here of the 4 steps of purification. So he begins on page 57, second paragraph. Is everybody there? Wave at me. Are you there on page 57? Okay, good. All right. Okay. Such matters to which this kind of confusion applies are very common in metaphysics. So in other words, when it comes to religion, there's going to be so many opinions. And this is why there's so many religions, so many denominations. Maimonides is saying this is because it is ignorant people creating these who don't have a clear view because their mind is small. We have so many small minds. That's why we have so many small denominations. We are on page 57, second paragraph. Right, so he's saying there's a lot of confusion in metaphysics because people come to metaphysics or religion with unprepared minds, and so they fall into confusion, right? This is why so many religions branch off, fragment into many different pieces, and there's conflict, and we're unclear, and who is really God, and which religion should we follow? Because so many people come to religion with an unprepared mind, and so they have confused teachings, obscure teachings, dangerous teachings, right? And that's what he's referring to. So he says there's less confusion in natural science and no confusion in mathematics, right? So then he goes into the steps of purification. According to Alexander of Aphrodisias, the causes of differences of opinion are 3. In other words, there are 3 things that cause this confusion. And if we can watch these 3 things, we will have clarity. Our mind will be ready. And then he's going to add a 4th one. He says this, right? Okay, so what is the first What is the first step or first cause of confusion?
The desire for control, for power.
Okay, very good, right? Number one, desire for control or power. Let me read it and then I will explain. So he says this here, page 57 still. One, he says the first cause, the first thing we have to work on to purify the mind is the lust for authority and power. Okay, make sure you underline this. Okay, desire for control. Now, let me explain this. What does it mean? Well, let me first ask, what does it mean when you're coming to the spiritual path? How does it ruin everything that you want to be in control? Tell me. How do the control freaks never really even begin the spiritual journey?
I guess you have to accept that there is no real control. Everything is out of our control to then be willing to open up and learn everything else.
Very good, right? This is the first obstacle, is we want the divine to reveal himself or herself on our own terms. In other words, if they don't reveal themselves like we want them to reveal, we done, right? We don't want to lose control. We are not ready for a new revelation. We have our conception, how God should be, and if God doesn't fit in these conceptions, we don't give even the benefit of the doubt. We're out. Let me say that again, because a lot of us do this, right? A lot of us have turned our backs on the spiritual journey mainly because of this. We had an idea who God was supposed to be. God did not fit into that idea, and we were done with him. This is most of us. Let me say it again, right? A lot of us have turned their backs on any type of spiritual journey. I'm not saying religious, right? Religion is another thing. Spiritual journey. Because number one, we had an idea who God was supposed to be, how he was supposed to act, how he was supposed to protect me from this man. He was supposed to save my grandmother. He was supposed to do this. He was supposed to do that. And then God does not deliver. And now we're like, okay, I'm done. I'm done with this God. There is no God, in fact, right? This is the control. We want God to be who we have decided he should be. And if he doesn't fit into our concept, we interrupt. We throw everything away. No journey. we stay. We right. So this is the first. We need to be capable of receiving a new revelation. We need to be capable of being, number one, made uncomfortable, and number two, of realizing that God might not be who we think he should be, like Job. Right? Remember, Job had a very fixed idea. God is like this. God doesn't deliver. Why are you doing this to me? Right? He gets angry. Then, how dare you not fit into my image of who you're supposed to be? A lot of us are like this. We get angry. How dare you not fit into the version of you that I had in my mind, right? And God is like, I'm not a version. I am something else entirely. And a lot of us, we miss the explosive revelation we could have that Job eventually received because we give up. The beauty with Job, with all of his flaws, and he has a lot of flaws, is that he hung on. He didn't leave till he had his revelation, right? And yes, Job is a selfish man. He's flawed. He's egocentric. He's self-centered. He's the center of, right? So he's arrogant. He's a lot of, rigid. He has so many flaws. But one thing to his credit, he hung on till he got his answer. And a lot of us, we give up, right? God doesn't deliver like we think he should deliver. We're done. We just cut him off, like we ghost him. You know how you guys do on social media? We ghost him, like, I'm done with you. Right? So that's the first thing. If we are not willing, like Job, to give God the benefit of the doubt, to be open to, well, maybe there's something more going on that I'm not seeing. Let me wait, let me see, let me explore, let me ask, let me hang on, let me demand, right? Like Job. Too many of us, when God doesn't deliver, when he doesn't fit into our assumptions, what God's supposed to be, we just give up. And at that moment, because of our desire to control the experiment, to control who God is supposed to be, we miss the whole journey. Any questions on this first one? This is the biggest stumbling block. This is where most of us get stuck. Any questions on this? No? Everybody good? Okay, let's go to the next one. You're tired, aren't you? I can see it on your face. You look tired. You're all like slouching. If you're tired, think of what I am. Okay, number 2. What's number 2? Look at the text. Somebody?
The difficulty of it.
Almost. Yes, I don't know what your translation.
Oh, okay. Well, the exact words, he says, the subtlety and profundity of the subject.
Yeah, very good.
Be apprehended.
Excellent. Let me write it down in the chat. The subtlety. Okay, I will have to. Subtlety and profundity of the subject. Okay, so now this is another idea. This is a notion that when it comes to spirituality, things are never as they seem, right? In other words, one has to be willing to dig and to go deeper if we're going to truly understand. Most of us, however, we don't have the mental capacity to see, to go deeper, right? So this is where Maimonides is saying we need to be doing something on the level of the mind in order to be appreciative of the profundity. What is needed, we talked about this in the introduction, what is needed for us to see more deeply in the text, like we did in the book of Job. Remember, there's 2 layers. You can interpret the book of Job on a simple layer that, be faithful and then everything will be okay. Or you can go deeper. What would allow you to go deeper? What do you need to do? Talked about this. Remind me.
Is it exploring different perceptions, going away from your religion?
Yes, very good, right? In order to be able to go deeper in a given religion or scripture, we have to get out of the religion. That's the simple. In order to see the subtlety and the profundity, profundity means profound or depth, deep, right? In order to go deeper and see beyond the surface layer of just traditional religion, right? Of the traditional teachings, in order to go deeper and see the depth of the issue, the wealth of the meanings that are hidden beneath this layer of traditional interpretation, we need to step out of our religion, learn something else, broaden our mind, and then come back. And this is why most religious people, they don't get to the depth. They don't get to the profundity. They stay on the surface, idolatrous level, right? Now, I'm going to be, so make sure you write this down, right? The second way you prepare to see more deeply into the religion, right, is to go out of the religion and broaden your mind by studying. So this was on page, I think, 61. I think somebody was reading this. Yes, the 61. Go to the second paragraph on 61. We read this earlier. One who strives for human perfection must train himself first in logic, then math, then science, and finally you can go back to scripture and religion, and now you're going to get into the depth of it. Unless you do this, you're going to stay on the surface and read Job in a completely twisted way, or the other texts for that matter, right? So now this is interesting. Let me ask the class. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna bring it home for you. I want you to tell me what is the worst subject in school that you're struggling with. Just a few of you, raise your hand and tell me what is your least favorite subject. You hate it. You have F's in it. Yes.
Math.
Math. Okay. Who else? Sing. Go ahead. Sing.
I was just like reading with her in the maths.
What's your subject that you hate?
Math.
Math. Oh, you too. Okay. Statistics. I see. Yes, I would hate that too. What else? Anybody? Chemistry? No. Y'all didn't do chemistry yet? Okay. And yeah, I need two more hands.
Yeah, I'd say the hard sciences are probably like a chemistry or those are the ones I definitely do lower in than
yes.
Arts, English, and philosophy.
Excellent. One more. De La Torre, I think you had your hand up.
Oh no, I already said math.
Oh, you did? Okay. Math, right? Okay, excellent. Now, this is what Maimonides is saying to you right now. If you want to really be good at what you do, whatever it is, whether it's philosophy, literature, the other topics, you actually have to be good at math, hard sciences, chemistry, statistics. In other words, take these subject matters as opportunities to broaden your mind. Because when you come back to your own topic, right, whether it's literature, philosophy, economics, or whatever, you'll be better, right? I remember for philosophy, this was the case. I'm not good so much at math and science, but the training I had in math and science became invaluable when I started to do philosophy, interestingly, right? So it made me a better philosopher to have done these completely outside topics that have nothing to do with philosophy. It's the same for religion, right? Says Maimonides. If you want to be good at religion, you need to be good at math, science, logic, statistics. If you want to be good at anything, if you want to, like, for example, me with philosophy, if I want my mind to be broad enough to understand the texts that I'm reading more deeply, I need to go out of philosophy and start studying all these topics to broaden my mind. When I come back to philosophy, I'll be a better philosopher than if I didn't do this. It's the same for religion, right? And this is what he's talking about here. You cannot get to the profound meanings of religion if you have not left and walked out and broadened your mind. Okay, now what page were we on? I lost myself.
57.
Thank you. Okay, any questions on this second one? All right, you guys you just want to stop. You just want this class to end. Okay, number 3. What's number 3? What's number 3? On page 57.
You're saying the ignorance of
The apprehender.
yeah, the inability to maybe understand.
Very good. Ignorance of the apprehender. Okay, so let's talk about that, right? Here, let's be clear. Maimonides is not talking about people who, are ignorant, meaning they're stuck. That's their state of being, to be ignorant. Nobody is stuck in a state of being for Maimonides, right? So what does he mean by ignorance? What he means by ignorance, and you see this in other texts, is laziness, intellectual laziness. That's how you become ignorant, right? Nobody in a way is condemned to be ignorant. You are ignorant because you have chosen to be ignorant. You have not gotten up and made the effort, right, to not be ignorant, right? So for him, ignorance has to do with a kind of laziness, intellectual laziness. Now, there are 2 ways that we can be intellectually lazy. So I'm going to write them down. Number 1 is, I'll say it and then I'll explain, is a dogmatic approach. And number 2 is the skeptic approach. Okay, the dogmatic and the skeptic are both types of intellectual laziness. Okay, let's begin with the dogmatic person. What's a dogmatic person? Somebody define to me a dogmatic person. What does it mean to be dogmatic?
Kind of having like this one specific view and that, like, that's it, nothing else.
Okay, dogmatic is, I grew up believing this. This is my family. This is my political party, right? We've been in this forever, and that's my truth. And I'm not going to question it. I'm not interested in questioning it. I'm comfortable here. That's the dogmatic. How is this a form of laziness, according to Maimonides?
You're choosing to be comfortable instead of branching out.
Exactly, that's laziness because you're not interested in broadening your mind, right? Yes, Trujillo?
I'm not interested on learning something else, something different. They
Exactly.
get stuck with the same information and don't want to go out.
Exactly. And so you are now stuck, right? Again, in your spiritual journey. You have grown up thinking about things in this way, seeing God in that way, and you're comfortable with that. That's the religion of your forefathers. This is it. And you're not interested. You're fine with how things are. Maimonides is not happy with you. Maimonides is saying, you're lazy. You're not interested in growing and attaining perfection, right? That's the first one. That one is easy. Now, the skeptic, paradoxically, is also a kind of intellectual laziness. Why is that? So a person who is asking questions and who says, oh, there are no answers. There are only questions. Why is that person also a kind of lazy person, according to Maimonides?
maybe that person is not happy, nothing satisfies the person.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yes, very good. And they use it, yes, Bernard, they use it as, in other words, the skeptic can also, even though they're better for Maimonides, it's better to be a skeptic. You have questions, you're thinking about it, but the skeptic one day can become comfortable in the questions and stop believing that there might be answers. And that, says Maimonides, when you stop believing there might be truth or answers to your questions, and you start to become arrogantly complacent in your questions, you're lazy, he says, right? You've given up. You've given up on truly searching and finding an answer and the truth, right? So this skeptic is better than the dogmatic, but it can fall also into a kind of complacency or laziness in one's questions, right? So he says the path, right, of purification, already we see 3 points, right? Number 1, you have to be willing to let go of your preconceptions. Be open to a new revelation. Number 2, let me remember. Yes, you have to broaden your mind, study other things, move outside of your comfort zone. Number 3, you have to be constantly moving, right? Forward. Now we go to number 4, and this is the worst. What is number 4?
Habits.
Yes. Okay, let me write it down in the chat. Number 4, habits. And this is the biggest obstacle to receiving divine providence, is the way you were brought up. Most of us are stuck in the way we were brought up. We are stuck in the religion of our parents. We are stuck in the political party of our parents. We are stuck in their way of thinking, in how we were taught in school, and how we were taught in church, how we were taught in the mosque, and we're comfortable, and we're fine. The God that we have met there is good, is comfortable. My mind is like, you're missing it, right? Until you are ready to journey outside of your comfort zone, you're not ready to meet God, right? Until you're ready to leave everything behind, you're not ready for a true encounter, right? So Polivas, Aristotle, yes, we are what we repeatedly do. In other words, we become, through habit, something that maybe we were never meant to be. Maybe we're meant to be something else, but we will never know, because we have become so accustomed to believing in this way, thinking in this way. The ultimate spiritual journey, remember, is the story of Abraham. How does that story begin? Does anybody remember the first time we meet Abraham in the Hebrew Bible? What is he doing? Does anybody know? Genesis 12. What's Abraham doing the first time we meet him in the Hebrew Bible? Anybody remember?
Is this when he's being confronted? No, with his children, with Isaac?
Yep,
That's after, okay.
later. That's 22, Genesis 22. Nope, that's after, before welcoming guests. He did something else. Well, nobody knows. Okay. So yes, Kestenbaum, that's the Talmudic variation on it, but that's it. Yes. Abraham is told by God, you will leave behind your country, your father's house, your family, and you will go to the land that I will show you. That's the ultimate archetypal structure of the spiritual journey. Exile, right? Abraham was called outside of religion, his father's house, the idols of his family, towards the unknown, so he could meet his own God, right? The God that was his, right? So this is what ultimately Maimonides understands this. We cannot have a genuine, authentic spiritual journey or reach perfection if we have not left behind everything we had learned for something new, right? If we're not courageous enough to do that, we're going to just be worshiping the God of our fathers, but never our own God. That's why in the Hebrew Bible, God is always described in connection to a given person. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. Every time you have an individual encounter, unique, We are all called, according to Maimonides, to have a unique encounter which nobody else has ever had or ever understood or ever witnessed or ever experienced, right? We cannot have this unique encounter if we're going to be comfortably sitting in our Father's house, right? Worshipping their idols, right? So Maimonides is saying the last step is shedding everything you've learned, shedding everything you've become, shedding all of the education and the molding that has been done to you, and walking naked into the wilderness so you can have an encounter with the true God. That's what he's saying. And this is the step which a lot of us are unable to make, right? So that's the 4 steps of purification. If you do these, and you can do this, by the way, in a completely agnostic way, right? You can do this everywhere, for science, for physics, for relationships, right? Anytime you purify your mind and follow these steps, you will receive divine light. Am I willing to be open and experience something new? Set aside my expectations of how things should go. Are you willing, right? Number 2, to expand your mind, to learn something new. Are you willing to keep at it until you reach the end? And are you willing to shed everything that you have been so far for something? This is any type of journey, love journey, knowledge journey, religious, spiritual journey. You will need to do these steps. This is initiation on all levels, right? Anytime you do these steps, you will begin to grow, either in your love or your relationship, or in the science you're studying, or in spiritual journey. These are the steps you need to take, right? So that's how we do it, right? Unless we have gone through this preparation, we're not ready to study scripture and start to teach it and start to, wave it and, shove it in people's faces and down their throats, right? We're not ready until we've gone through this careful preparation of the mind. Now we're ready to receive the divine light, right? If you do these 4 steps according to Maimonides, you will begin to receive wisdom that you've never had before. And you will be able slowly to move beyond the pathetic, wretched life that you're in right now. No offense, right? So that's the idea according to Maimonides. If you do these steps, you will receive, believer or not, right? Whether you are a believer or you are an atheist, doesn't matter. If your mind is broad, it will go in, right? That's what if you're able to shed some prejudices, preconceptions, expectations, and broaden, right? Purify and broaden. These are the 2 things that are needed to purify from expectations, prejudices, rigid conceptualizations, broaden by journeying elsewhere. You're ready to receive the divine light. Okay, any questions on this? I'll review, I can see your hands. If anybody need a clarification, a question, are you ready now to have an amazing spiritual journey now that you have been initiated? This works again, right? For any journey you're about to make, you need to go through this preparation. Whether it's a journey into a new career, a journey into a new relationship, a spiritual journey, this is the same steps, right? Okay, excellent. All right, let me stop the recording.